Put that coffee down.
I'm not here to waste your time, okay? I certainly hope you're not here to waste mine. So I'm gonna keep this short.
Helen, we're both in sales. Let me tell you why I suck as a salesman.
The most valuable commodity I know of is information. Wouldn't you agree?
Coffee's for closers only.
Hey there, friends. Welcome back to the Behind Your Back podcast with me, Bradley Hartmann, founder and CEO of the Behind Your Back Sales Company. In this podcast, we talk about leadership, personal productivity, time management, and the craft of selling in the construction industry. Now, this episode is brought to you by Boise Cascade Engineered Wood Products and us. Yeah, that's right. We don't do too many of our own ads here because mainly when I'm running my mouth the whole time, it's kind of an ad. Is it helpful? We'll see, hopefully. But today we are talking specifically about our 2021 Sales Fundamentals Workshop. Now, if you've been a longtime listener, you've heard about this in the past. This is generally our every single April. We hold a Sales Fundamentals Workshop. It's 2 full days of engaging selling fundamentals, as the name implies. There's a truth in advertising there. So we talk about time management, we talk about prospecting, we talk about goal setting, we talk about leading measures, the behaviors that drive towards ridiculously high margins and lots of money and record-breaking sales performances. And we get builders involved. We have all sorts of fun. And the first one we did was in 2019. It was a raging success. We immediately sold out, had 85 seats that were sold out for April of 2020. You may recall that timing was inopportune, so it got pushed back. Long story short, in 2022, we will get back to our regularly scheduled cadence of every April holding our Sales Fundamentals Workshop. However, this one was a holdover, so it is going to be happening September 7th through the 9th. Now, we have exactly 2 seats that have come available. Otherwise, we have 83 seats filled. Mainly, these are sales reps from all across the country. We do have several VPs of sales. We have some sales managers. And for some smaller companies, we have executives that are coming who all either A, want to apply these directly to their own business, or B, they want to take these good ideas and these frameworks and these systems and these tools, both online and off, and they want to take them and apply them in their own businesses. We are thrilled to get back to the face-to-face interaction, and as well as we're having all these live events that are popping up, scheduled for keynotes through Q4 to Q2 of next year. So I'm absolutely thrilled to get back doing things face-to-face. But if you are interested, we have exactly 2 seats. The investment here is $29.95, $2,995. Everything is included. So we're covering hotel, we're covering food, we're covering drinks. You just gotta get on the plane, you're paying for airfare, and you're paying for an Uber to get to the Omni in Fort Worth, and you can join us. So if you are interested, again, we have exactly 2 seats. These are going to go very quickly. Feel free to email me directly at bradley@behindyourbacksales.com, and of course, while supplies last. And if you think this could be valuable for some of the people that you have hired recently, or maybe some folks who need to improve their selling skills as we head into what is guaranteed to be a unique selling environment in 2022, we are going to hold our next one in April. So by the end of this year, we're going to be selling that out as well. Looking forward to doing that. So enough about us, enough about the Sales Fundamentals Workshop. Now, there's an incredible book that I've been revisiting almost weekly since COVID hit in March of 2020, and it is called The Person and the Situation. It is by Lee Ross and Richard Nisbett. I would strongly recommend it to a friend. My copy is dog-eared. There's highlighting all over the place. And the one-line takeaway of the entire book is fairly simple. It says that human beings in general underestimate the impact of a situational change and overestimate the ability of people to change. And basically, when the situation changes, that means the people involved in that situational change, they change as well. And too often, we think more about the individual and what's happening with this person and how are they dealing with this and are they doing it right? Are they doing it wrong? And yeah, the situation is just, it's something else. It's something smaller. And this whole book that looks at the psychology of situational change and behavioral change flips that and says when the situation changes, then people change. So what has changed in our situation? And to point out the obvious, since March of 2020, we have been in constant change week to week in our industry, in our life in general. And whenever we feel overwhelmed and we see the situation changes, I like to step back from my own business and our clients, and we say, no matter what we're facing here, no matter how the situation has changed, how can we be intentional to go about moving forward, right? And if we are letting the situation unfold organically and letting our strategy unfold organically, that is the opposite of being intentional. So when the situation changes, I go back to the basics. And I implore our clients to go back to the basics. And we go there together and we say, what are our goals? What are the incentives? What are the sales activities? How do we manage our time? What are the results that we're trying to get? Are we achieving those? What does our pipeline look like? No matter what happens in the environment, we can always go back to those basics: goals, incentives, sales activities, time management, the results, the pipeline. How do we revisit those and be intentional no matter how the situation changes? And I'll give you some examples because we're working with several of our clients. We're answering questions from friends in the industry, from people who are submitting these after listening to the podcast. And I'll just give you a random sampling of what we're dealing with. We have one whose sales rep has sold nearly $2.5 million for the last 2 months, and both of those months have been at a negative margin. We've been working with several different sales reps that have gone from last year getting monthly checks worth $5,000 or $6,000 to getting checks each month between $25,000 and $30,000, and yet they are depressed. They are meeting with people. They are actively engaged in improving their own mindset because they're realizing they're not happy. Despite all the success in the market, we're still seeing the general bell-shaped distribution. We still have sales reps that every single month are underperforming to their potential, either on revenue or margin or both. Just this past week, we spent several hours working with one team as they continue to struggle to have conversations about pricing changes with key customers, whether the price is going up or the price is going down, or in this case, the price is staying the same for now. And yet we continue to engage with our best customers and have conversations filled with hostility and emotion that's completely unnecessary if it's done intentionally. We're still seeing sales managers who are spending more of their time working directly with customers. They're trying to be the hero. They're selling instead of being the sales manager, helping the rest of the team be successful. We're still working with ops teams who are too busy to check deliveries before they leave the yard. And of course, we don't have enough drivers and we don't have enough time in the day. We don't have enough bandwidth. So it's this positive feedback loop that is killing people. Meanwhile, we have builders who recognize that they do not know how to sell and build homes profitably when costs are volatile and building materials are scarce. It's a new situation they've never had to deal with before. They need answers. They need you. And here we are, we're struggling internally instead of finding new ways to deliver new value. So once again, the situation has changed. We got to go back to basics, go back to the process, back to intentionality, understand these sales activities and the incentives. And when we do this, we need to understand, yes, there are always unintended consequences. And our ability to look around the corner to see what the most probable scenario is, both good and bad, based upon our actions, and then see if we can engineer those solutions that we want. So with all of that as a backdrop, we're going to jump into this episode, which deals with compensation and Cobra effects. So very deliberately, let me take you to a faraway place a couple hundred years ago. There were venomous cobras roaming the streets, and they tended to earn attention. It was the mid-1800s, and India remained an English colony. The British Brain Trust convened a meeting to identify a solution. In time, a common sense solution emerged. A bounty would be placed on the head of every dead cobra. Now, the thinking here was threefold. 1, venomous cobras on the loose are bad. Number 2, a financial reward to incentivize the locals to kill the cobras is good. And number 3, the cobra problem would be solved while improving community relations. And on the surface, hard to disagree with any of those three. You can imagine the British colonials saying, Well, that's a bloody win-win solution if I ever heard one. What could go wrong? Well, once the bounty program for dead cobras was announced, Indians behaved as the British had hoped. Immediately, dead cobra heads were delivered by the bushel. Financial rewards were distributed, and the cobra population fell quickly. Everything, according to the British, was going according to plan. Until it didn't. The Indians realized this financial bonanza would soon be over as cobras were eradicated. So they sought to extend it. How? Well, obviously, they began to breed cobras. The British were perplexed as the cobra problem was not decreasing over time. And by Indian design, of course, the cobra problem would never go away. The locals hoped the cobra program represented earned annuities, fixed sums of money paid out weekly, ideally for the rest of their lives. In time, the British government learned of this Indian entrepreneurialism, and they were very displeased. Failing to anticipate unintended consequences yet again, the Brits hastily canceled the program. The Delhi locals reacted in kind. The breeders released all the cobras into the street, which tripled the pre-bounty cobra numbers. Now, every incentive carries the risk of unintended consequences. In hindsight, poor people breeding cobras to cut their heads off and earn an annuity is the most logical outcome. Human nature dictates when the situation changes, people change. And human nature dictates that when financial incentives are introduced, people will seek to maximize their gain through the least effort possible. Now, how can you avoid such Cobra effects? You can avoid unintended consequences in sales through the disciplined focus on sales activities, output, and incentives. Now, as we talk about sales activities, here's a relevant question. As we stand here today, as you listen to this, do you have a sales process? I mean, a formal one. One that is documented on a single piece of paper that's easily understood, it's predictable, and it's repeatable. If you just grabbed some guy off the street and showed it to him and said, imagine you were in sales, imagine you were interested, do you understand how we go about doing what we do? By just looking at this document. Because if you don't, well, you might want one. Because when the situation changes, people change. And as we've entered this environment with limited building materials and every builder on earth knocking on our door looking for inventory, the question is, well, we don't have to prospect anymore, do we? Many companies have simply said, we are not taking any new customers. We'll come to that in a minute. I don't love that idea, but I understand the thinking. And here's the question. If you didn't have a sales process before, yet the situation has drastically changed, how do your people really know what to do? Is it intentional or is it organic? So let's just say we use a generic 5-step sales process that can work literally in any time. So if you didn't have one today, you could begin doing this right now. Step 1, research an opportunity. Number 2, open a dialogue. Number 3, propose ideas and insights to deliver unique value. Number 4, negotiate. Number 5, close. Now, any activities that do not directly move new opportunities forward with existing customers or targeted prospects along this 5-step process are non-sales activities. Doing takeoffs, inputting orders into the system, measuring foundations, confirming delivery dates, job site deliveries, attending meetings for the party planning committee, and following up on invoices are all examples of non-sales activities. Are they important? Sure. Should sales be doing them? Well, not if you want salespeople selling. Now, here's an interesting aside. I've heard this more and more, which frightens the hell out of me. On a recent trip, I heard this twice in 2 different locations with 2 different companies. It was people at the sales counter being flustered by the number of incoming calls and say this, don't have it, can't get it, goodbye. I've just started shorting this to DHI, CGI, goodbye, mainly because I love acronyms and it rhymes. DHI, CGI, goodbye. Don't have it, can't get it, goodbye. Now, these sales counter folks generally fall out of my purview in most of our consulting agreements with our client companies. But I'll tell you, this mindset is an extremely dangerous one. Because no matter whether or not we have the inventory, we can solve problems for people. When we have people either directly, and I heard these directly, or indirectly picking up the phone saying, don't have it, can't get it, goodbye, and essentially hanging up the phone, people remember how they were treated when times are tough. And for builders, times are tough. So Be on the lookout for this. Don't have it, can't get it, goodbye. DHI, CGI, goodbye. This is very dangerous, and companies that don't change this now are going to see a negative impact in 6 or 12 or 18 months whenever the power returns to the buyers. Don't have it, can't get it, goodbye. I hope to God I've heard that for the last time, but I doubt it. Anyway, it may seem like common sense to have salespeople spend most of their time conducting sales activities, but I will tell you, it's hardly common practice, even and especially right now in these strange situational selling periods. In working with thousands of sales professionals over the past decade, we consistently find most salespeople spend less than 30% of their time on activities that directly drive sales results. And yes, that includes today. So how can you avoid such a fate? First, recognize that sales, account management, and customer service are 3 distinct roles, each with their own purpose. Then identify the specific sales activities that underpin your sales process and relentlessly prune all extracurricular activities, including and especially the party planning committee. So here's the question. If you say, we're not going to take on any new clients, and we understand the unintended consequences of that, of strategically hamstringing our number one competitor, let's say that's fine. We don't care about that. You keep yours, I'll keep mine, we're all good. Here's the question. As the situation has changed, have we said, hey, these 3 activities, sales, account management, and customer service, we want a shifting more towards customer service. I want you to spend 30% of your time servicing existing customers. And don't try to sell. Don't try to increase wallet share by selling stuff that we do have in inventory. Are we having these conversations, or are we just letting our salespeople do whatever they have to do to get through the day with the least amount of disappointment and the most amount of sales? That's a rhetorical question. We're going to move on. Let's talk about sales output. Once we've defined what we want our salespeople doing, we want to assign the percentage of time spent in each activity during the week. And this step is critical to intentionally engineer the output of your sales team. So if you want your salespeople to develop plans to steal your top competitors' best customers away, that's great. What percentage of their time each week should be spent doing this? And I'll tell you, it is the minority, but we are working with several clients that are doing just this. They are trying to figure out how to steal their top competitors' best customers away. And they're going to do it, and they're also going to find a way not to lose the current best customers they have on the roster. So just an FYI, some people are doing this. Do you want your salespeople to intentionally sell more of what you offer to your current customers? It's wonderful. What percentage of their time each week should they spend doing this? And we have way too many people complaining about we do not have an inventory. Meanwhile, we do have lots of inventory that's on the ground that we could sell to some people, but we're not even focusing on it. So again, I realize these are incredibly hard times we're in right now, but we're having too many people complain about what we don't have when we're looking back in the yard and seeing that we have existing inventory that's been sitting there, in some cases for months and months and months. How do we find a way to move that? No, it's not easy, but then again, this whole practice of selling shouldn't be easy. Here's the rub. You cannot expect predictable output without clarity around the time spent in each activity. And this requires clearly stated goals and constant trade-offs among the urgent and the unexpected occurrences of daily life. Now, a solution here is a simple activity output template that can eliminate confusion in under 1 hour. You can download and share this template that we are using literally every day over the past few months by visiting behindyourbacksales.com/tools. behindyourbacksales.com/tools. Again, that is the activity output template. Next, we look at incentives. Now, incentives should be carefully selected to promote the behaviors you wish to see more of and decrease the behaviors you wish to see less of. Now, what's interesting is most of the folks that we've talked to have not changed their incentives at all. They have not changed their sales activities at all. They have not changed their sales process at all. Meanwhile, the world has turned a 180. Everything is now up upon its head. So the question is, are we being intentional? So again, incentives should promote the behaviors you want to see and decrease the behaviors you don't want to see. Well, that sounds simple enough, right? And yet, we all know about Cobra Effects. Now, the most common unintended consequences in sales, in good times and bad, is the acute annuity-based account management syndrome, aka the 3AMS. So suppose a growth-oriented company implements an incentive program whereby sales reps earn a commission on gross profit dollars generated. So when the company profits, the sales rep profits. So far, so good. And over time, the sales rep lands a few large accounts. The rep works hard to deliver unique value and customized solution that make the account's life easier. The rep smooths over the inevitable bumps in the road during the first 12 to 18 months, and the two organizations settle into a predictable rhythm. Now, as the relationship enters year 3, the first signs of 3AMS, that is the acute annuity-based account management syndrome, they appear. Time invested in creatively getting components or new building materials to and through the customer more efficiently is replaced by the WTF model, that is whiskey, tickets, and fishing of account management and relationship building. No new products and services are sold. The sales rep shifts from relentlessly delivering unique value to a quote-unquote maintain and retain mindset as the commission checks roll in each month with little stress. Now, as the company pushes for further growth, the sales rep pushes right back. After all, he or she worked hard to earn these accounts years ago, driving profits for everyone at the firm. Now, these high-value accounts, now purely on autopilot, represent earned annuities, fixed sums of money paid out monthly, ideally for the rest of the rep's working life. So if you want your salespeople to intentionally sell more of what you do offer and what you do have in inventory to your current customers, they might say, I asked. They're not interested. Say you want your salespeople to meet with builders who are still stick framing to understand their needs, fears, and pains. They might say, not interested. Those old dogs, they'll never change. So I'll ask you, do you recognize any of these unintended consequences? So as the situation has changed over the last 15 months, have we understood how the incentives have changed? Have we understood these unintended consequences? Not unlike 19th century India, your leadership team may be detecting a new threat, the growing number of sales reps with 3AMS. That is acute annuity-based account management syndrome. And they're roaming the streets. Now, what are you going to do? Are you going to convene a meeting to identify a solution? Or a better question is, when from the very top of the organization, from the C-suite, sends the message to salespeople, I do not want you to sell any new clients. You cannot. You are forbidden. All right. When are we planning on changing that? How are we monitoring it? Is it an ironclad rule? Even if the number one, the most successful builder in the market that any other month of the year, or decade, suppose, you would love to work with, if they come knocking, the answer is no. There's no way we're going to get rid of our low profit, annoying customers who demand the most and are the most transactional. There's no existing clients that we're going to get rid of to accommodate a new great account. All right, that's a choice we're making now. How will we know when we change that restriction? Are we monitoring it? Are we planning it? Are we thinking through the different scenarios? What would have to be true for us to begin taking on new customers? Those conversations need to start now. Regardless of economic environment, you can avoid unintended consequences in sales through the disciplined focus on sales activities, output, and incentives. It's this trio that creates the environment necessary to breed true sales professionals that succeed in any market. Indeed, true sales reps, those with a passion for disciplined selling, not account management, and not customer service, these are a rare breed. It's your role to create the conditions for proper breeding. So here's the question for you. What will you breed? Cobras, long-term complacency, or a commitment to sales excellence? And just to be sure, don't have it, can't get it, goodbye. That is the opposite of sales excellence. So as always, thank you for listening. Listen, I know these are incredibly unique and stressful, frustrating times. And I can tell you we're engaged in these conversations every single day. And they're not black and white. And there's a ton of gray. And it really depends on what you're trying to do and how you're trying to get there. And that's why we've been having so much fun, I should say, if I'm allowed to say that, helping clients navigate this time. So if there's a specific project, currently we're working on a $30 million opportunity to improve one of our client companies with the amount of special orders they're doing. To improve their process, to limit their special orders. We're also working with several folks on just transforming their sales organization to be more deliberate in terms of sales activities and output. And that's going to survive and adapt whether this next 90 days or 6 months to our traditional selling environment when this power inevitably shifts back to the builders. So if there's any way we can help, do not hesitate to reach out to me directly at bradley@behindyourbacksales.com. And of course, if you found this episode valuable, please share it with your network and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. Those mean more to us than you know. That's all I've got for today. We're going to close out like we always do. You, my friend, you are owed nothing. Deliver value first.